us all together. Lord, we gather in your name as children of a sovereign God. Forever we proclaim, to God be all glory.
Well, good morning. How you doing? It is Monday, April the 6th, 2020. Monday, April the 6th, 2026. Welcome to episode 646 of The Thinking Theologian as we continue our journey through the scripture. So today we're finishing the book of Judges, reading Judges 19 to 21. A lot to learn from these few chapters. Title of today is No Clear Leadership Leads to Sin. Focal scriptures in Judges 21:25, and this is what it says, is in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did whatever seemed right to him. So bad leadership causes a multitude of problems. No leadership creates chaos and invites sin to run rampant when there's no leadership. I've said several times during my journaling that leadership matters. Good leaders set the tone and creates an environment. And it creates an environment where people are loved and held accountable. That's what good leadership does. Bad leaders create an environment of tension and arrogance. When nobody leads, people will give into the evil desires of their heart. So leadership is important because it helps restrain evil and restrain evil acts. Even bad leaders do that to an extent. But when there's no leadership, just the evilness will just run rampant because there's nothing to restrain that evil. In today's reading, we see the results of no leadership in Israel. With no king, the people did what was right in their own eyes. The chapters that were read today see this play out amongst the people. The nation is in civil war. Nobody is able to hold sin accountable amongst the people. Murder takes place with no concern, and women are mistreated, raped, and killed, and then cut into pieces. We see the priest's wife is cut into pieces and as a message to send across. No leadership created a vacuum. Their sin was taking the entire nation to a place of destruction because nobody was there to lead. And the people who were supposed to lead were not leading well. They were leading in sin and have their own ambition and not really looking to do anything God told them to do. And so I hope you have seen just how important leadership is for believers and for the church. Leadership has to be taken more serious, or we will continue to see sin run rampant, which is, if we look around the world around us and in our Christian setting, it is happening on a daily basis where people are in leadership that shouldn't be because nobody holds those people accountable. And so leadership has to be taken more serious, or we'll continue to see what we've been seeing. Now, I need to point out that we need more believers involved in politics, secular leadership, and in every avenue of life. And so I'm actually advocating that more believers get more active and don't try to hide their beliefs, and they need to become more active in more critical areas of life. The world needs to see what biblical leadership looks like in all settings, and it is possible to be done. The problem arises when churches do not take leadership serious in their own house. And I believe this is what's happening, is that churches are going through the motion and not training leaders. Leaders are not born, they are made. They have gifts given by God, but they have to be brought up and led. If you see bad leadership, it's because that person was trained terribly, or the people who can help navigate that are not training this person in a godly and a right way. And so when that happens, the people do not have an example to follow, and it creates chaos, and chaos is never good. Churches and their leaders must be held accountable to biblical standards. This only happens when the members know the scriptures. In every place there's a dysfunction of leadership is because the people in the church, because the people don't know the word and they're not willing to apply it. If they do know the word, they're not willing to stand by it, even when it's uncomfortable, because to lead, you must lead even when it's difficult and even when you have to do things that are not easy, because we're all following somebody and we're all leading some way or somehow. And so in the church setting, for instance, I do not believe in an individual being the sole person making decisions. If there is, that's a major problem. I believe in a plurality of elders. that are God qualified men who are able to lead the church in the direction they're going. Because when you have one person, it creates all types of problems, because there's too much of a desire to have their own desires and own issues going on. And so I challenge you today to examine yourself and your leaders. Examine how you lead. Are you a good leader? Are you a bad leader? Or are you no leader? Is there no leadership at all? Does your leadership glorify Christ, or does it allow people to do whatever is right in their own eyes? The evidence will be easy to spot. And so we need to examine what type of leader you are, what type of leadership you go, or are you allowing no leadership to take place? And I get on churches a lot for this, because bad leadership creates issues, and we should be the example of what good leadership is. But when we're not, it constitutes everything. Leaders must be humble. They must love the Lord. They cannot be jerks. They cannot treat people terribly. You can't act one way publicly, another way privately. You must be somebody who loves the Lord with all of their heart. There must be evidence. If the people do not demonstrate this evidence, conditions shouldn't be in leadership. And if people who are trying to hold leaders accountable aren't doing their job, then those people shouldn't be in positions of decision making, because being a leader means making difficult decisions and not tolerating bad leadership. And this is where no clear leadership leads to sin. And so, and churches are guilty of this, but also they can set the tone and put people in leadership and begin to train people in biblical leadership. But again, you can't have one voice doing this, because if you do, then you're going to get their personality, and that is not a good thing. I've said it a million times on my journaling. As the pulpit goes, so goes the church, and that is the reality of it. When you hide things and you don't do things with great leadership, it's going to pour out in every area of life. And so I challenge you, I challenge myself, be a good leader. And if you're a bad leader, correct it. And if you're giving no leadership, then understand that you're creating a vacuum that is going to cause great damage and pain, and people are going to do right in their own eyes. So thank you for being here today. Tomorrow we'll be in Ruth chapter 1 through 4. Have a good day.